So we had the announcement press conference and the head-to-head between Billy Joe Saunders, the WBO middleweight champion, and his mandatory challenger, Wille Monroe Jr. I didn't realize until yesterday that Monroe has actually been made his mandatory challenger. He has replaced Avtandil Kurtzidis, who was the Georgian that has now been arrested. So as a replacement for a mandatory challenger, this is pretty good. I would argue that Monroe Jr. is a more difficult mandatory than Kurtzidis was. Kurtzidis is a strong, tough, big punching fighter, but he's very short. He's unorthodox, yes, but he's slow. He's not the most skilled guy out there. Whereas Monroe Jr. is very skillful. And styles make fights. I personally think that Kurtzidis was a style that suited Billy Joe more so than Monroe Jr., particularly when you take into account Billy Joe Saunders' last performance, in which he faced the southpaw and he had a lot of trouble in that fight. People are going to argue that Monroe is actually better than the southpaw Billy Joe fought in his last fight, and I cannot remember that southpaw's name. Most of us probably can't. He's a guy I'd never seen fight before. But yeah, he gave Billy Joe all he could handle, and a lot of people believe Monroe is better than that guy. Billy Joe was making a lot of the Monroe-Golovkin fight, in which Monroe quit. He got to his feet. He did not appear to be terribly hurt, and he said, "I'm done." I remember that quite clearly, actually. I remember at the time thinking, wow, he's not even out on his feet. He's okay. Monroe responded to Billy Joe's accusations of being a quitter, having a lack of heart, by saying, at that particular time, the moment got to me. It wasn't really the fight. It wasn't really Golovkin's punches, but it was the moment. There was too much pressure in that moment. He said he only had 6-7 weeks to train, and he wasn't mentally prepared for what he was about to face. It wasn't really the physical. It was more the mental. So that's Monroe's response. Billy Joe has to try and unsettle Wille Monroe Jr. He has to get under his skin. He has to take him to that place that he was in the Golovkin fight, if he can. The problem is, and other people have pointed this out, Billy Joe Saunders is not the kind of puncher, at least he hasn't demonstrated it so far in his career. He's not the kind of domineering fighter in the ring who's going to force people to quit. Again, he hasn't shown that so far. And he showed a decent amount of punching power against Andy Lee. He dropped him heavily. But he didn't really press it after that. He didn't really put Andy Lee under any kind of pressure. So will he be able to bring the quit out in Monroe Jr. again? I personally have my doubts. You know, Billy Joe is a slick boxer, a tricky southpaw, but he's not really a brutal guy in the ring. You know, I'm sure he'll try and finish anybody if he gets them hurt, but his style is just not very conducive to making people quit. So let me not labor the point anymore. You drop your comments in the comment section below and let me know what you think about that. Can Billy Joe Saunders break Wille Monroe mentally? Monroe loves a boxing match. He had a boxing match pretty much with Gabe Rosado, and he boxed Gabe Rosado's ears off. If you allow Wille Monroe to box, how many middleweights out there can actually box with him? Danny Jacobs, maybe? I mean, Golovkin didn't box with him. If anything, Monroe was getting the better of the boxing against Triple G. It's the fighting where Triple G eventually got the better of it, and Monroe held his own even in the fighting department for a while as well. He was swapping shots on the inside against Triple G. Some people say Triple G was allowing him to hit him, but that's another debate. But as I say, if it's a boxing match, Monroe has few peers in the middleweight division right now in terms of just boxing. If it comes to actually fighting on the inside and a battle of attrition, then he's not so strong in that department. Will Billy Joe Saunders have to make it a battle of attrition? Will he have to make it a dogfight? That's something that he hasn't had to do much before in his career. Or will his boxing skills be enough? Am I overrating Wille Monroe's boxing skills maybe? Maybe he's not that good of a boxer. Maybe he's one of those guys who visually, because he's athletic and whatnot, fast hands, nice movement, you think he's a good boxer, but when he gets in there with somebody who is also slick and also crafty, he ends up just being, it ends up being a bit of a smokescreen. It ends up being a mirage, not quite what it appears. So let me know what you think, people. Is this a difficult fight for Billy Joe Saunders? Are any of you out there actually picking Monroe to win? Remember, Monroe quit against Golovkin, and he also said, I was in the lion's den against Golovkin, and all the fans were screaming for him and against me. Well, he's in the lion's den in this fight as well. He ain't going to have no fans at the Copper Box. It's all going to be Billy Joe Saunders fans. So let me know what you think in the comment section, people. It's happening, I'm out.